Today we're breaking down the key developments, controversies and expectations ahead of the elections. We'll be joined by Eti-Osa Local Government Chairmanship Aspirant of the Youth Party, Ayodele Adio. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome to the show. And I think, first of all, start by saying congratulations. We've heard of your official announcement to run for office, which is very interesting. We're now seeing you, the Ayodele Adio, we know differently now. We're seeing a different side of you. A different hat, literally and figuratively. What inspired you to run for office?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I think that to your question, I got tired of complaining to the problems because these problems just seem to never go away, especially problems that are not esoteric and problems that could easily be solved by a different class of politicians who are passionate, who are compassionate, and who are competent. And so I've spent the last decade or so, writing columns in newspapers, offering commentary on television and radio, preferring solutions to these problems. And for some reason, the people that we continue to elect into office continue to fail spectacularly to even solve the most basic problems that electorates grapple with. And this boils down, most times to a lack of capacity, but more often times the fact that the politicians that are elected into offices, have no compassion for the people that, they are making decisions on behalf of. And so I thought that it was a complete waste of time, to continue to prefer solutions to people who are unwilling to solve the problems that they were elected to solve. And perhaps it was time to use, the knowledge that I've acquired, the skills that I've acquired, the experience that I've gathered, to solve some of the basic problems that our people, are facing, at least, at the local level. And hence my decision to throw myself in the race, to give the people of Eti-Osa a different kind of politics, a different kind of governance that will ultimately have significant impact on their daily lives.
Thank you, Ayodele. You saw the clip we played before the interview started. These are members of the ruling APC, and as we speak, the central government is also APC, and we know what Lagos means, and especially the local government you're running for is the richest local government in the whole federation, so all hands will be on deck, and it's going to be highly contested. So for the ruling party to have internal struggles, members protesting about the conduct of the primaries within their party, I know it's a different matter. Do you have any sense of confidence in the electoral umpire, the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission, LASIEC? Do you think they will be unbiased in the conduct of these elections and the votes will really count?
So, I'm not sure that I want to express confidence in LASIEC. What I and my party has done is to ensure that, we compel the commission to follow, due process and to ensure that the elections are credible, they are free, and they are transparent. So I'm not leaving that to the willingness of the commission to act fair or not. We have taken significant steps. For instance, we have written a demand letter to the commission asking specific questions and encourage them to make publications of the answers to those questions. For instance, we have asked a very significant question whether or not polling units or registration areas will be tampered with, because that the usual practice is that in local government elections, the State Electoral Commission sort of delineates polling units across Lagos State, which is completely illegal because state electoral commissions do not have the powers to be able to delineate polling units. The consequence of that, obviously, is that when you come out to vote on election day, you'll be told that your polling unit is 20 streets away or in some other local governments that you are completely unaware of. And that suddenly automatically disenfranchises a lot of people who want to come out and vote. So we're compelling them to make a publication and a public commitment that they will not delineate polling units, and the polling units that your PVCs are tied to will be where electors will go out, and vote. And failure to make that publication would approach the court to compel them to do the right thing. So these and several other issues we are going to be taking them to task with to ensure that the process is at least credible, it's at least fair. But we do not want to see collation centers happening in local government secretariats. The collation centers must happen outside local government secretariats, because at the moment, you know that they control most of these local government secretariats, and all sorts of shady things happen process of collation. You also talk about the fact the process itself of voting. The history in Lagos State is that on election day, the people who come to vote are usually pass no accreditation process. So it's sometimes a situation of Shoma Dubonye, Oyawateka. All of those things will ensure that they do not function in this current election. If you're not accredited to vote, you should not have the right to vote in any polling unit where these elections are taking place. So we're taking concrete steps to at least create the legal framework upon which the elections will be free and fair, and upon which would have legitimate grounds to challenge the outcome of these elections should they try to manipulate the process at the end of the day. So we're not leaving it to the goodwill of the chairperson of the commission or the commission itself. We're taking concrete steps to ensure that there's a lot of fairness, transparency, because that is only what will encourage electorates to come out and vote. Historically, we have, very serious voter apathy when it comes to local government elections. Less than 4% of the electorates come out to vote. And that's because they lack confidence in the process. And our work now is to inspire that confidence. And to do that is to prove to the people that their votes will count, and that we've put together some sort of a framework that allows that vote, to count.
All right. There are also worries in line with consensus. I mean, the APC, like we did see in the video, have come out to say that they would actually be going through a consensus, like basically, have an agreement to select their candidates. I don't think that went down well with some of the members. The same we do here is also going to be done for your party, the Youth Party. Can you tell us how consensus would actually work for the good of your party, seeing that other parties are equally adopting the same process, and how does this affect the entire process when it comes to democracy and come to local government chairmanship as well?
Okay, so first of all, it is not like as a party we're adopting a consensus, candidate. Primaries are going to hold this Saturday. The difference here is that at the moment, I am the only person running unopposed for this particular local government, right? So in that regard, as at this morning, I'm not competing against anybody. So you're not really going to have, whether it's a direct primary or indirect primary, what you're going to have is likely to be an affirmation, of my candidacy. So it's not like we have put 12, 13 people in a room together to say step down for Ayodele Adio. That's not the case, in the party. And to the question that you have raised about, what had happened in the APC, the law allows you to elect candidates in three ways: direct primaries, indirect primaries, and of course by consensus. The problem, with the APC in Lagos was that you had told the people to come and buy forms, which was pegged at 5.5 million naira for chairmanship. And you had told the people that you were going to conduct primary elections to decide who will be the flag bearers of those parties. And as I hear, close to 500 people bought chairmanship forms, and hundreds of other bought councillorship forms. And the next thing is that the party announced that there will be no refund of these amounts that were paid. And then the next thing again, 3 days to the election, was that they were going to, adopt candidates through a consensus. Now, that sounds to me a bit like political MMM, because if you knew from the onset that what you wanted to do was to adopt consensus candidates across, you shouldn't have started selling forms at 5.5 million naira and have people expend scarce resources to purchase those forms and then deny them a level playing field to contest in a free and credible primary election. And I think that does a lot of disservice to our electoral process, because you sort of are creating and breeding a culture of impunity and a lack of fairness. And that's why you see, the internal wranglings, whether it's in Koshofe, in Eti-Osa, and across Lagos states. People had paid monies for forms, thought they were going into a primary election, and the next thing, it was a political MMM. The rugs were pulled under their feet. And the next thing, candidates were being, adopted that, in some cases, the majority of the people, did not want. And of course, it's shameful, but, sometimes we can't cry more than the bereaved, because if you ask these same people, to cross over to a political party like ours that gives you a level playing field, to contest the primary elections where results will count and whoever takes the day emerges as the flag bearer of the party, you're not likely to see them jump ship. They seem to enjoy the imposition. They only cry when it doesn't benefit them at that point in time. But you can be rest assured, in the next 1 or 2 weeks, they would all fall in line. And that's quite a shameful thing to happen in any kind of democracy.
All right. Still talking about moving from one political party to the other. The APC seems to be the most popular party at the moment, with a lot of people from different political parties moving to the All Progressives Congress for several reasons. Are there concerns by the youth party that this might happen to your party as well? We've seen the PDP, the Labour Party. So do you have those concerns? And if yes, how do you plan to handle them?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure that we have concerns about people leaving our political party, to the APC. That's not a concern that we have. And I see that this is being expressed constantly, by pundits who think that Nigeria is tilting towards a one-party state. I do not think that really and truly that is the case. What you're seeing are politicians who are pursuing self-interest and self-preservation, moving into the ruling party to protect their own interest, or to prevent, some sort of persecution, if you asked me, and insulate themselves from the consequences of some of the decisions that they have made while they're in office. And that's why you're seeing droves of people moving in that direction. And so I do not think that is likely to lead to a one-party state, because what will happen, obviously, is that the Nigerian people will then decide to look for political parties that share their aspirations, that share their values, and seek to support those political parties, that will champion their voices and show and demonstrate a commitment to the Nigerian people. Because ultimately, it's the people that drive political parties and not the other way around. So it doesn't matter how many big politicians move the other way. It's the electorates that will decide who actually will govern them at the end of the day. And once the people can sense that this political jostling that you're seeing currently is not in their own interest, but in the interest of the politicians who are seeking self-preservation, you will see the people make decisions in the other way. You saw that with the last elections where, the Labour Party swept up, the polls, picked up senatorial seats in places that were unlikely and unexpected. Mm-hmm. It was because the people powered that movement. And that is exactly what will happen, in 2027. It could be the Youth Party. I'm not sure with what platform it will be, but I can guarantee you that once the people wake up to the realization that politicians are in pursuit of self-interest and self-preservation, and that's why they are running into the ruling party, what you're likely to see is that the Nigerian people and masses would coalesce under a platform that represents their ideals, their values, and are willing to fight for the interests, of the people.
Now, Ayodele, let's talk about local government autonomy and why local governments, in your opinion, are very, very important to the people. The Supreme Court passed a landmark judgment last year, but as we speak, so many governors are yet to obey that judgment. They're still holding local government funds. Why do you think this is the case? And what do you say to people that feel, these local governments, if you release all those monies to the local government chairman, we might have a lack of accountability, and they haven't shown enough working for the resources they're getting already?
Well, I mean, how much workings have governors showed you that you release all the funding to them? So I mean, these are just very juvenile arguments that people like to make. At the end of the day, there's been a Supreme Court decision that guarantees financial autonomy for local governments across the country. In fact, the recent communique from the Attorney General of the Federation is that there are efforts to actually even go a step further. In fact, it was even debated on the floor of the Senate, I think, 2 days ago, where local governments are now supposed to go and open accounts directly with the CBN so that the funds come directly to them and do not have to pass through, the joint accounts that they usually share with state governments, right? But you see, the most important element here is the Nigerian electorate and perhaps the media and civil society organization that will fight for that independence. You see, the problem is that we have continuously normalized that culture of impunity where governors seem to ride over or lord over local governments, at the state level, and everybody just simply looks the other way, and sort of normalizes that culture. The moment we begin to put our foot down and begin to ask pertinent questions of our governors and to say that, listen, leave Eti-Osa for us. It's the people that will decide who governs Eti-Osa. And the resources that accrues to Eti-Osa has to be spent on the people of Eti-Osa, and the people who were elected into Eti-Osa have to be accountable to us here. That is the beginning of the transformation of local governance, right? And it has to start. And I give you a typical example. In Lagos State, we seem to have all normalized the fact that elections should happen in 37 LCDAs. Of course, it's unconstitutional. I know it's unconstitutional. Why have we normalized it? There are only 20 local governments recognized by the Constitution. There are only 20 local governments in Lagos State that get allocation from the Federation account. So why are we contesting elections into LCDAs that are not recognized by the Constitution, that are not funded from federal revenue? Why are we normalizing that level of impunity? Right? So these are the places where we should begin to ask tough questions, even starting from the media, that every time that there's a press parley by the government saying that we're conducting elections into 37 LCDAs, I expect to see a significant level of pushback to say that even, especially after the Supreme Court decision, there is nothing like LCDAs in the Constitution. Mind you, just yesterday, I saw in certain platforms, they were happily sharing the fact that the constitutional amendment bill that is being sponsored by Federal House of Representative members from Lagos State, Honorable Jimmy Benson and Honorable Faleke, to the extent that the bill to recognize the 37 LCDAs as full local government has killed second reading. So, in fact, they are currently sponsoring a constitutional amendment bill in the National Assembly to make it legal recognition and legitimization of these LCDAs, which also shows that they recognize that it's illegal, it's unconstitutional. So why are we running elections into LCDAs that are not recognized by law? So you see, these are the issues. And it starts by genuine interest. And I must thank you, sincerely, I must thank News Central that you first organized a town hall that brought all the political parties together, invested significant resources in doing a live broadcast and demonstrated interest in local governments. That is exactly what I want to see across several media organizations, many of whom completely lack interest on the real issues surrounding local governance. All they just want to do is report APC this, APC that, this member in APC is fighting that person. Those are not the issues, right? The media must be interested in the real issues affecting the people at local governments. And I thank you for doing just that, by getting involved in these things and reporting the true state of affairs of our local government. That's the only way that we can achieve genuine independence. When the media, is ferocious about the truth, when civil society organizations are up to task, and when citizens themselves, demonstrate interest in what happens in their own local governments and are willing to defend it from imposition by state governments or subversion, by their state houses of assemblies. That's the only way we would make progress.
All right, as we wind down on this conversation, Saturday is just around the corner. The countdown is on already. As let's put it in quotes, a new player that's about to get into the league. What are the aspirations that you hold dear to your heart, and what chances do you think the Youth Party has? That's one question I'm asking. I'm just going to follow that up with a sub-question. Do you really think that the Youth Party is carrying the youths along, especially from this local government level?
Okay, so first of all, I'll start with the first question you asked, which was, what we're aspiring, to do in this local government. The truth is that I'm really running on two cardinal principles, which is public accountability and the delivery of effective, public services. These are the two cardinal principles upon which I'm running, which is that the resources that accrue to the people, of Eti-Osa local government works for the people of Eti-Osa local governments. It affects, their daily lives, and the people can see the impact of those resources. We will be transparent and open the books to show them where every naira and where every kobo goes. We would ensure, really and truly, that monies are spent only on projects and public services that have significant impact on the people, and not, on other interests that do not amount to the progress of that particular local government. And of course, again, effective public service delivery. That means obviously that there will be effective waste collection, that your environment would be clean and resilient. That obviously means that primary healthcare centers, would work effectively. They will be manned by qualified health workers. That means obviously, that there will be an economic, we have an economic plan that will train and retrain young people in that local government to certify them with the skills and capabilities to function in the most thriving sectors in that local government, which is hospitality, which is construction, and of course, which is the creative economy. And so we're putting things in place in those particular sectors to stimulate the local economy, to train and empower young people with the skills and capabilities that will make them hired and that will make them being paid nothing less than the minimum wage. And so I have a bold plan and a bold initiative to hire over 20,000 people over the next 4 years, none of whom will earn below the minimum wage. And so we're going to be reviving the local economy, in that regard, and creating some sort of a 24-hour economy. And any economy that runs for 24 hours, inadvertently, which is the night economy, will create 30% more jobs than you have usually in the daytime economy. And this particular corridor is bustling with all sorts of, entertainment activities, nightlives, and all of that. And so we're geared towards that. But to your next question, which is about, how we're going to win, whether we're mobilizing people, what are the chances of us emerging winners of this election? Well, I can guarantee you to say that we're doing the groundwork. We're speaking to every kind of group that you can think about. Whether it's mechanic associations who are excited about our offerings, our plans, our proposals for them. Whether it's people who run small businesses and small shops across the entire corridor, whether it's young people who are desperate for jobs and desperate for opportunities. So I believe that our message is resonating. And more importantly, I believe that people are tired of the status quo.
Absolutely, I do. I completely agree with you that people are tired of the status quo. We want a different, Nigerians want something different at all levels, from the local government, state, and
something different that works, because we've asked for change before.
Anyway, we certainly wish you all the best, and we do hope that, what you're offering to the young Nigerians or to the Nigerian people at large, will be different from what Nigerians have seen over time, and may the best man win at the elections. Ayodele Adio, thank you for your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much.